Welcome back to the Nebraska Furniture Mart Locker Room Show, where I'm joined now by Breland and Jared Kohler for tonight's Roundtable. All right, guys, at this time next week, we'll have real Royals baseball games to break down. So with opening day, now just days away, I want to hear your expectations for what fans will see out of the boys in blue in 2020. Jared, you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that old baseball adage that a 162-game season really comes down to just 62 games, because every team, no matter how good or bad they are, is going to win 50 and lose 50. And I think that still applies for a 60-game season. It's just prorated. The math says that every team in baseball is going to win at least 20 and lose at least 20. So it really comes down to just 20 games. And that's such a small sample size. But I think that's how I'm kind of approaching my expectations for what this season could be. Because there's going to be days where the Royals get blown out and their starting pitching just doesn't have it. Then there's going to be days when they blow out their opponent. It's those 20 games where the game is tied in the 7th inning, the 8th inning. Do the Royals win those games? I think that's what's really going to be important, especially in the first couple weeks. If they can come away with a few one-run victories, I think that really shows that they're going to be in it through the entire season, because out of those 20 games that are kind of toss-ups, even if you just win 10, 50% of those games, that still puts you at 30 wins, and that's only a couple games out of where many project the wild card breaking point to be. So if the Royals can just go 500 overall, they're going to be in it until the final week of the season, which is something we haven't said in a few years. So I'm very excited to see the way this 60-game season plays out. I think Royals fans should be too, but you got to remember, there's just so much stinking luck involved here. Because, look, the Minnesota Twins on paper are a better team than the Kansas City Royals. But are the Twins, without their best 3 players, better than the Royals? No. And so when you factor in COVID-19 testing, and if the Twins have 3 of their top guys go down for 2 weeks, well, I think the Royals are better than them. So if the Royals can stay healthy and other teams in the Central maybe get a little bit of a bug, I don't wish that upon any team, but that's something you got to factor in a weird year. It completely opens the door, and it's why this year is completely wide open.
Yeah, it's going to be very wild to see how that all unfolds, and the timing of that, just in general, health-wise, is going to be crazy. Breland, what are your expectations for this year?
Yeah, I'm just going to bounce off of what Jared was just talking about. You keep that in mind. Look at the Royals just during the summer camp. For some reason, COVID loves catchers, right? And they completely ran out of catchers on their 40-man. And having that happen when it did happen was probably a blessing, even though obviously no guy wants to lose time. But when you run out of catchers in the middle of summer camp, that's a lot better than running out of catchers in the middle of the season. And so those things are going to eventually happen to everybody, whether it be an entire position group, probably not, maybe, who knows?
Yeah.
It's just so unpredictable that it's really, really hard to set an expectation or some type of goal heading into the season, because you have no idea what to expect. Even Mike Matheny flat out said that the other day. He was asked on Friday, hey, what about this roster? You guys are a week away. What's going on with this? And he's like, man, it's so hard to predict, because not only do we still have several position battles that need to be solved, which is a normal thing, you're also dealing with this abnormal, gargantuan thing in the back of everybody's mind that at any day, some guy that you were fully counting on to make that roster might have to be out for at least 2 weeks. And so I think it's just really, really difficult to navigate this year. And so my expectations are simply, I hope they are able to fit in a full 60-game season. That's my expectation.
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys, but I also think that fans should expect not to be going to the ballpark this season. Maybe you can cross your fingers and end up with some kind of fan presence in the playoffs, but I think the atmosphere is going to be very weird watching it from home. We've seen it in just the few intra-squad games where they've been pumping in that MLB The Show sound and crowd noise and music, and you're like, this is kind of strange. I'm not quite sure what's going on here, because some player will get a great hit, or we even saw the grand slam from one of the Royals players, and it's like kind of delayed, the fan cheering. You're like, oh yeah, awesome. So it's very strange. I think you're going to have a lot of the same intensity from a lot of players, but I do think for the most part there will be a lot of players that have a hard time being able to actually feed off of that and play to the same enthusiasm level as they would during a regular season. So even though the stakes are higher, I do think that without fans in the stands, it's going to make it a very different watching experience for fans in 2020.